On today's episode, Scooby-Doo Chase Music the Movie, aka Ghost, right here, right now, on GonstFM Off Air. Welcome, ghouls, ghoulettes, and guesties to GonstFM Off Air, the official podcast companion to 66.6 GonstFM, the radio station dedicated to the band Ghost and the wider Gonst community, broadcasted live once per month on the Station Head app. I'm your host, Richie, aka Papa X, aka Papa Me Meritus, as so lovingly named by all of you Gonslings. It's here, it's arrived, it's happened. I'm talking about Ghost right here, right now. The Ghovie, as we have all come to name this thing. Today being Sunday is the last day that it's being shown in theaters, and as of now, it's been out for 3 days. I will go ahead and warn you right now, spoilers are abound, so if you have not seen this movie, do not listen to the rest of this podcast as there will be spoiler material abound. It's been a while since I've done a full movie review because my old podcast, that's pretty much primarily what we did were movie reviews. But I'm not going to get too into it as far as beat by beat. I just want to kind of give my opinions on this film, things that I liked about it, things that you may have picked up on or may not have picked up on. I'm not going to be pointing out every single little Easter egg, but just things that I have noticed. So feel free to leave comments below about what you liked about this movie, what you saw that you enjoyed. I guess we can kick the front half of this discussion off with the concert element aspect of this film. I'll jump into the lore a little bit later. You don't necessarily have to have seen the chapters. I mean, although it does help if you've seen the chapters and you're a fan of this band going into the movie. Alex Ross Perry and Tobias Forge made it very clear that they were going to give you the rundown right at the jump when the movie starts. They kind of explained to you like, hey, this is what's been going on. This is how many papas there have been. Oh, by the way, Sister and Papa Nil are Cardi's parents, and Cardi's afraid of dying. That's why he wants the tour to keep on going so that he doesn't face death like his brothers did, and he thinks he's the best leader of this band and all this other stuff. And it's like, yes, abso-fucking-lutely. This is 100% what has been going on, but they jump into the concert and then they sprinkle in a little bit of backstage banter in between each song. As far as the concert aspect of it goes, holy shit. The music has been mixed extremely well. It's really nice to hear every individual band member's performance piece. The bass was really pumped up in production, the Ghoulette's vocals are on display full blast, and I need to shout out Mountain, aka Hayden. I need to shout this guy out, okay? Because Hayden was the music director of this entire fucking thing, which that is a world-class drummer right there. And I'm not even just talking about because he plays in Ghost. I'm talking in general. The dude has played with Paramore and a couple of other bands. Like, he's really good. And it takes a very talented drummer to be able to piece all this together and help coordinate it all. Your band is, and I'm not saying this just because I'm a drummer, but I really mean this. Your band is absolute shit if you don't have a good drummer, and he's fucking phenomenal. You basically have gotten the entire set from the Re-Imperator with a couple of extra songs. Obviously, if you have Ghost, which that version has been probably one of the most talked about things in this movie, and the inclusion of 20s. And the skeleton dancers, aka Skeletitties, because let's be honest, it's body paint. Like they had like undergarment on the outside matching it, but this was body paint. I loved the cinematography of this movie, and I really want to give a shout out, obviously, to Alex Ross Perry, and also a bigger shout out to Jim Parsons. No, not that Jim Parsons. I'm talking about the live concert director, Jim Parsons, because they did a really good job of matching the quality of footage. It blended very seamlessly for being two separate crews, because you had the one crew working on the LA Forum gigs, and then you had Alex Ross Perry and Tobias working on all the other stuff that was like Backstage and everything else that didn't have to do with the live aspect. But this really all goes into the hands of Robert Kay, who was the director of photography. Like, I could really get into the entire crew here, which they all have done a phenomenal job making this movie what it is. It was shot beautifully. The band looked way, way better than you would ever expect it to look. I haven't seen a live concert film shot this way in a very long time, or at least look this good. Just a quick production element here that I thought was really interesting. The way that they shot this was that they did it over 2 nights, obviously, whenever they played the LA Forum. But each night when they set the cameras up on night 1, they set all the cameras up to the left side of the stage. And then on night 2, they set everything up on the right side of the stage. And this was done so that they were able to shoot the concert without including being able to see all of the cameras and production elements going into it. So it left the viewer looking like you're getting a real bird's eye view of every angle without the inclusion of the magic. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's making the magic happen? And I think that's really what lent the uniqueness to this film. I thought that was a brilliant production move. And the big thing about this is getting to see Papa 4's facial reactions. Those are some of the best parts of this show, is seeing his facial reactions and the sneering and the growling and the comedic bits whenever, Soto or Phantom jump in the way and start playing guitar, and he gets pissed off because his spotlight's getting taken from him, and he's just like, shoving him aside. It's fucking hilarious. It's good stuff. I know a lot of the complaints online have been like, oh, we didn't get to see the shimmy, or like, we don't see enough of the ghouls and ghoulettes, and we didn't get to see enough of the solos on Miasma. We didn't get to see enough this, that, and the other. And it's like, okay, well, but the ghouls have always been treated like the backing band, since the inception of Ghost. Because the main story here is Papa Emeritus IV. He's dealing with the impending end of his run as the frontman of Ghost and is afraid of death, as very well evidenced in the beginning of this film. But before we get into the seriousness of that, there's a lot of stuff where he runs backstage and he's being silly and he sees his mom, which is Sister Imperator. He's like, oh, hello. And, nothing's really changed. He's just really this quirky, weird guy. But as the movie progresses, and he's coming backstage more and more, he starts asking questions like, who is in charge? Like, who's running the show here? Who says where we go and what we do? And he's like, well, why can't this go on forever? We're doing such a great job. And it's at this moment, really, that Papa Nil kind of fucking steps up finally and becomes the dad he probably always should have been, gives him advice, and he's like, he really has a heart-to-heart with him. Him and his mom both have a heart-to-heart with Cardi, and it's a really good moment. And this is like right before he gets, resurrected to go play his saxophone solo in Miasma. And he gives this entire kind of speech about, hey, you think that you've always been, king of this castle? Like, there's people that have come before you, and there's going to be people that come after you. There was nobody there at all before that house was built and before this whole empire was a thing. He says, like, it's a continuation. It's going to keep going no matter what happens. This train keeps rolling. So you should always live in the moment right here, right now, which is a really cool thing, how the movie title Right Here, Right Now encompasses a lot of things going on. It's the Square Hammer lyric reference, but it's also referencing what Papa Nil was telling Cardi. Hey, live in the moment, be right here, right now. It even references the fact that everybody in the LA Forum crowd had to put their phones away and just be in the moment and just have it in their brains and remember it, like being there in the moment and just experiencing it. I honestly wish more concerts were like this. I think a lot of us live too much in our phones and watching, why would you watch a concert live through your phone in person instead of just experiencing it in the moment? I take my phone out and take a few pictures, and I take a video or two of like two of my favorite songs, and that's it. I prefer to listen to the whole thing and have it in my memory bank, in my brain. And that's what this is all about. And you can see the energy is palpable on screen. That's the best part about this crowd, is the energy is so... Like, you could cut it with a knife. Like, there's like a lot of like high energy and tension. Everything is so high. And I mean tension in a positive manner, because the crowd is hanging on literally everything this band is doing. And that brings me to a couple of spots in this movie. I really enjoyed If You Have Ghost. I really enjoyed the stripped down piano and cello playing this part and the backing goulette vocalist. I feel like I gave that song a facelift, even though it didn't really need one. I gave it just like such extra oomph and extra emotion. Very nicely done on a second stage, complete with a good pop of 4 pep talk to the crowd. And the little thing that I noticed here and there on this movie that I fucking enjoyed was the fact that they did some Foley work on the sound, and you could hear Papa 4's footsteps on the stage when you really shouldn't be able to hear that shit. You can hear them, and I thought that was really cool. And then after he gets finished, he puts the blue Papa robe on with the golden boxing gloves, and I fucking love the Rocky IV reference, because if you really look at the way the Papa 4 is written on the back of this boxing robe, it's straight out of Rocky. It's the Rocky IV font. A lot of people are like, well, what is it referencing? What is it doing this? Why did he just put it on to walk back to the backstage and go on stage for 20s? And I'm like, because why the fuck not? It's so cool. Like, that's how boxers go to the ring. They walk through the crowd. That's how they, touch, hands with people in the crowd. Like you touch gloves, or you give people fist bumps. And that was a really good way for it to be, is to be in character and walk through the crowd without, having to be like surrounded by too much security, and him, not, touching hands with people. It's a way for people to be able to reach out and give him a high five without them grabbing onto his hands and pulling him into the crowd. Not that any of them or any of us would do that, but it is like a good safety precaution. And I feel like that was a good way to work it into him transitioning from the stage B to the stage A. Now, 20s is heavy as shit. And it's even heavier live. And the skeleton dancers being there with him that was so fucking cool. This was really a great version of Ghost to put on screen. Even though nobody else but the LA Forum got this skeleton dancer routine, it felt very much like a Broadway musical when this happened. It was so fucking cool. Like 20s legitimately reminds me of a real stage play song. The march, the beat, the lyrics, the way it's sung, the choreography, it was fucking built for this. And then the show keeps progressing and we get like more of the badass music. Like you're going to hear this on the soundtrack. There's no question about it. You're going to hear this on the soundtrack. But one thing I thought was cool when he went to the If You Have Ghost stage for stage B, right after Watcher in the Sky, he goes to the back and he jumps into a flight case, like a rolling flight case. And he's sitting there and the ghost of Papa Neil pops up and they kind of have a moment where Cardi was like, why the fuck haven't you done anything for me? Like, you're like sitting there like, oh, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here. But like, what have you really ever done for me? And, Papa Neil was just like, oh, I could have been a great teacher, if you'd only listened and all this other shit. They're still kind of bickering. Like Cardi doesn't really get it. Papa Neil's being, I wouldn't say conceited, but he's being very much like he doesn't want to admit he's been a bad dad at this point. Like he really doesn't. And he really has been a bad fucking dad though. A funny part here was him giving an entire like Matrix reference, which was funny. He's like, oh, breathe in, breathe out. And then he just stops and you can just see him fart, just rips one of the blocks. And then Kopi is like, oh, what do you mean? Like breathe in, breathe out. And he fucking breathes and Papa Neil just leans in. Do you think that's air you're breathing? Total Morpheus moment. And then, Cardi realizes that, God damn it, Neil has just hotboxed the flight case. There's even like a Charlie Chaplin reference at some point during Conclavi Candio with all these hats and all this other shit before Watcher in the Sky happens. That whole element and that whole spot in the movie was fucking great. But anyway, back to the lore at hand. So Neil eventually tells Cardi, he's like, hey, I've got some advice for you. Do the crucifixion pose to let the crowd know that you've given them everything and you've got nothing left. They're trying to tell him like, hey, dude, this is really your last gig. Like, you need to understand that this concert is your last fucking gig as the front man of this band. And by the time Squarehammer comes around, Papa Four gets it. He's like, yes, I'm feeling it. I'm in the moment. I'm right here. I'm right now. And, he goes out there and he gives the pose and, the crowd goes nuts, obviously. But he's had this real heart to heart with his mom and dad about death and how the clergy continues and not everybody stays, forever. And I think at this point is when, he's had his aha moment, which was a funny reference whenever C-Store was like, you're eventually going to have an aha moment. And he's like, huh, cool. I like aha. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I like that band too. But this doofy son of a bitch, I love Papa Four so much. But we're getting to the point in the movie where by the end of the concert, he comes backstage and he steps into this hot air balloon, which is on the cover of the poster. And it's this total moment where he's, leaving the stage and everybody's like waving at him. He's like, yeah, bye. And I know this was a total fake out moment where Tobias like probably would have blown this motherfucker up like the Hindenburg. But then we get snapped back to reality as Sister Imperador is being walked off stage by Kevin, aka Jesus. A little sidetrack here. There had been little small moments where you've noticed that Sister was in a wheelchair and that she had an IV with water plugged into it and she has all of her medications and shit there. Up until this point, they've never really mentioned anything, but she collapses. But when she collapses, Papa Four has also eaten shit. Like he's fallen face first and it's kind of a fake out of like, oh shit, did Papa just die? But no. Sister Imperador has collapsed and she's, having heart paddles put on her. The EMTs are trying to work on her and, Papa Four is looking at this happening and it cuts to the next scene and she's on the stretcher in the middle of the LA Forum right after post-concert, and he covers her with the sheet because she's dead. I didn't cry at this scene only because like I had a feeling that Sister was going to be a fucking ghost, like literal, like how Papa Neil is. It's kind of like Star Wars. Like there's like they're force ghosts basically at this point. The theater reaction was different. Like, I saw a couple people shed tears, but most people kind of cracked up at this sequence whenever Papa 4 kind of lets out this, like he like looks at the air and he like goes and lays on her body. And yeah, he's sad. His mom just died. But I'll be damned if that wasn't the most like Tommy Wiseau from The Room-esque noise that I've ever heard in my life, outside of Tommy Wiseau actually making the noise. I think that might be why people kind of cracked up, because they didn't know if it was supposed to be serious or if it was supposed to be comedic. But as is with Ghost, whenever they go a little serious, they never stay in the serious zone too much. Because as this is happening, Saltarian rolls up. I've got to say this. Saltarian rolls up and he gives Cardi this letter. And I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it's a voiceover from Sister reading him this stuff. And I kind of cracked up because the way it's being read, it sounds like Siri is like reading it to him. Like Siri or Alexa is reading this whole letter to him. And we get the news that since Sister is now passed, Papa 4 is becoming the head of the clergy, known as Frater Imperator, not Father, Frater Imperator, because Frater is brother. So we have Brother Imperator because Sister Imperator is a thing, and now her son, Cardi, is taking over as Brother Imperator. Now, there's some things I'll go back and talk about to get to the post-credit scene. During Mary on a Cross, we get the Scooby-Doo chase music. Like, literally, they took the Scooby-Doo chase music joke and ran with it. Very literally. We got an animated sequence of what happened after the Kiss the Go-Goat music video between Papa Nil and Sister Imperator. And I fucking loved it so much. It was really good and was very well done. It's just like you find out that after that happened, they had another, like, I guess one night stand because she fucking leaves him high and dry in a hotel after they have sex. And before Sister died, she had like a flash of her life in front of her. And it showed that she gave birth to 2 twin boys. But they don't come out and say anything outside of just giving you the visuals of that happening, which we are to assume that Cardinal Copia is one person and he has a twin sibling out there somewhere. Now, as all this is kind of congealing and coming together at the forefront, as he fucking realizes, oh, Frater Imperator? Like, what? We get the credits. But then after the credits, we get Cardi in this badass black outfit, just clergy, bougie ass shit. I fucking love it. And he's standing there kind of bickering with Nil and he's talking with C-Store. And it cracks me the fuck up because as he's cussing him, this janitor, this fucking diabetes looking janitor rolls out looking like Wolford Brimley with a mustache and everything to match. Z's Cardi just are like talking to himself basically because he can't see the ghosts of his family. And he's like, whatever. And he rolls back and just leaves. And we get left with a cliffhanger of the new guy, which I think is funny because Papa Nil is just like, oh, this new guy, hopefully he won't disappoint as much as you did or whatever the fucking, that's what started the argument with Copia and Nil, which was pretty funny. But we see the outline of a miter walking up to the door as everything is kind of coming full circle whenever Cardinal Copia first showed up and they were playing the opening pieces of like Pro Memoria. And there was even a joke about, because it looks like they obviously shot in a different mausoleum than they normally do, because Cardi just kind of looks around and he's like, looks like we've remodeled a little bit. yeah, you did. Anyway, the new guy in shadow shows up, and it's really just like the outline of a miter. Now, I will say, I think that's just how the guy's head is shaped. Like, not really, but still, it's kind of funny. Come on. But we get left with the cliffhanger. And when I tell you that I have never in my life heard the biggest chorus of what the fuck in a theater in my life, you had to know that a cliffhanger was happening. We're getting a new Papa. Cardi's taken over as head of the clergy. The band's future is high. But we have gotten a brand new song in the credits before this scene has happened now, okay? It's the third Papa Nil song, which he brought up in the flight case when he, hotboxed Cardi. He was like, yeah, no, I actually wrote 3 songs. This one is set in 1969 called The Future is a Foreign Land. It is out on Apple and Spotify and YouTube Music and everywhere else that you can stream music. It's very well done. I think it fits in perfectly with Mary on a Cross and Kiss the Go-Goat. In fact, I feel like this song nails that time period so much better than the other 2 did. And those other 2 are fucking awesome. But The Future is a Foreign Land is a very well done song. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to give like a review of it. Just go experience it. And I will tell you this right now, that song means more and is much more impactful in context of this film. If you haven't seen Right Here, Right Now, and you've listened to this all the way through, it needs to be experienced. It needs to be experienced by, your own eyes and ears. If you have seen this movie, I purposely left a lot of stuff out because you've seen it and you know what to expect. I just wanted to give my thoughts on how I felt about it. I think it's a great movie. I think it's an instant cult classic, honestly. Like, this is definitely in line with like Repo the Genetic Opera and Rocky Horror and pretty much any kind of musical film that has come out in the last 40 years. It's kind of like this is Spinal Tap, but not quite. It's definitely Ghost. It is Ghost's own thing, and I am looking very much forward to more chapters and more music from this band. I want to leave with my final thought on something that I think is very poignant. If you look at the performance of If You Have Ghost, the way Papa Ford gave the talk during the song, and the song itself, the lyrics, by the end of this movie, Cardinal Copia has ascended from Papa Nil's right-hand man, from having the second most Employee of the Month awards, to fronting the rock band Ghost, to realizing his purpose, growing up a little bit, becoming head of the clergy. Even though his family are ghosts, because he has ghosts, he now has everything. Right Here, Right Now is a must-see movie for any fan of this band or music, period. It is a great music film. It is a great movie. It is really well done. I saw it twice in theaters. I hope to see it more whenever it hits streaming and hits physical release. And that's really all I have to say about it. I know I didn't break any new ground talking about it. I'm definitely not somebody that's going to be like The Guardian and give it 2 fucking stars, because fuck that shit. I'm just a big fan of this band and what they do. Huge thank you to Alex Ross Perry, Tobias, and the rest of the production department and makeup, sound, visual effects, everything. You guys have made a fantastic film, and you deserve every good thing there is to say about it. Marilyn Facey and Alan Ursillo fucking killed it as Sister Imperator and Papa Nil. And as always, Tobias just is a natural on screen. That is Ghost Right Here, Right Now. For past, present, and future episodes of GonstFM Off Air, you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. You can leave a rating and comment on the individual episodes on Spotify. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, leave a comment below, click the like button, consider subscribing to the channel, and ringing the bell for notifications. If you would like to join us for a future GonstFM Station Head radio ritual, if you would like to buy GonstFM merchandise, or if you'd like to join the official GonstFM Facebook group, GonstFam, all of this can be found in the show notes below. And so, my dearest Gonstlings, this brings today's episode to a close. Some of you I will see in Internet Land, and the rest of you I will see in GonstFam. Take care of yourselves. And remember, until next time, in Gonst, we Tronst. I'm Richie. I'll see you next time.